Extra time.
Hello and welcome back to the Extra Time podcast. It's me, Patrick Van Straten, your host, and today we've got a very special treat for you. We're going to be doing a review of Frank Lampard's first year in charge of Chelsea with resident Chelsea insider Zac Djellab. Hello, Zac.
Hello, yes. So some of my views are... I can't say all my views, let's put it that way.
Well, I don't think we're going to have the same problem after that, because after that we're going to be doing a little review of Arteta's first few months in charge of Arsenal, and that will be with George Wright, who does not have a problem saying his views. So, Zac, Chelsea, it looks like it's been a good week for them. Obviously, we're recording this just after they've made it to the FA Cup final, beating Manchester United very comfortably, I thought, at Wembley. And now with 2 games left to go of the season, they basically need 3 points to confirm a Champions League spot for next season. 2 probably gets it done as well. They've got Liverpool and Wolves in those last 2 games, but because Man United and Leicester face each other, that's a little bit of an advantage for them. And of course, they are still in the Champions League. They've got a round of 16 second leg fixture. Well, exactly. They've got that second leg fixture against Bayern Munich, but with a 3-0 deficit and Bayern's form towards the end of the season, it's hard to see them overcoming that. But nonetheless, Zac, I think it's extremely difficult not to look at this season and see it as a success for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think in context, if you remember at the very beginning, where Frank Lampard, who's only managed for 1 season professionally, has lost his best player in Hazard. Can't replace him because he can't buy any new talent, and has to put into the squad players who have never played with the first team before, like Mason Mount and Tomori and Tammy Abraham. And so if you'd said then, here, you're going to be in the FA Cup final, you're going to, still be in the Champions League, sure, and you're going to be basically fighting for, touch wood, get into the Champions League, 3rd place, 4th place, come the end of the season. I think every Chelsea fan would have snapped your hand off, because to arguably be the 3rd best team in the league behind an amazing Liverpool side and an amazing Manchester City side, where you're at the very start of the project and just beginning and just starting to try and see where you can go, and doing it whilst also having so many youth players from your academy. I mean, we spoke for so many years about how Chelsea they've got so much talent in their academy and we never see them come through. And so finally we see a season where they do play it. I mean, every Chelsea fan would have bitten your hand off. I think the reason why you maybe see a bit more negativity is that it's just due to the circumstances where they are now, is that they are in 3rd, and then there was a period where we went through a bad slump. And I guess it's weird of Chelsea this season. I feel more confident playing the top 6 and the top half of the table than I do the bottom half. Whenever we face a West Ham or a Bournemouth, I'm scared, because any team that decides to have like a low block or sit back, that's where we've not been able to beat them. But then when we face sides like Manchester City and even Liverpool in the FA Cup and Man United in the FA Cup, we play good football. And that's the other thing as well. I mean, whether Chelsea fans will say it or not, the fact we had Sarri for a year has probably helped Lampard a lot, changing to this attacking philosophy, and it is working.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an unusual Chelsea side in that sense. I mean, like, it's extremely attacking. It's pretty open. Like, at times they have a kind of naivety about them, which it almost reminds me of when Arsenal were good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a really good attack. There are loads of young players coming through. They do have a little bit of a soft centre, though I guess, like you said, their results are kind of the opposite way round. Like, they're very good against the big sides, and then they've struggled in some of the other games. But it's almost like the Ancelotti days to me, when everything is played at 100 miles an hour. And when it's good, teams just can't live with them at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big things that I felt in basically every game this year, maybe apart from Sheffield Wednesday, we've made so many opportunities. We just don't put them away. I think some of our attacking prowess just isn't quite there. Like, we're not clinical enough in some games. I remember a Bournemouth game where I think we ended up drawing, but we were winning, and we just don't kill off games, and we just failed to. We can have all the possession we want. I mean, how many times I feel like I've read that Chelsea have had 60-something possession or 70% possession and yet lost the game just due to not being able to finish teams off, or we've drawn because the team's been able to come back in the second half. But I also, as you said, I kind of think that is a bit of naivety. I think it's just with the team is so young and they're not quite used to it. It's weird having a Chelsea side which defensively isn't as sound as we're used to. Because that's the one thing, I guess, growing up as a Chelsea fan, I was always used to. We had an incredible defence with some of the best defenders in the world and a goalkeeper who was always fantastic. And I'm sure we'll probably get onto that in total. So it's kind of weird seeing that side where we're letting in a lot more goals than I would think or would have liked or what I'm used to. But on the other end, we're playing more attractive football, more enjoyable football to watch than, say, when we were under Mourinho or under Conte. And that's not to say their football's wrong. It's just, I guess, from a footballing idealist love of the game, watching passing and watching yourself build an attack is much more entertaining than just seeing yourself play on the counter.
Yeah, and the stats absolutely back up what you're saying there. I mean, if you look at the expected goals numbers, they have Chelsea as about the 5th best defence in the league, but the 3rd best attack. And it's not really 3rd best because they're pretty much neck and neck with Liverpool by expected goals. I mean, we've seen guys off the bench, like Giroud obviously recently has had a good run of form. Tammy Abraham was on fire before Christmas. Christian Pulisic, I think, has been one of the revelations of the season. I mean, I've seen a lot of praise for Frank Lampard recently, and I don't want to kind of reduce his achievements this season, but I do think some of it is being a little bit overstated as like something Frank has done. So, for instance, I think that a lot of people are focused on the transfer ban, but even with the transfer ban, Chelsea was still able to bring in Pulisic and Kovacic last summer, which were really big transfers. And then also, what was the cup game where you started Gilmour and another youngster, and then they ended up coming off for like...
Leicester.
And they ended up coming off for like Kovacic or something. And I remember...
It wasn't their best games.
I remember afterwards they were like, well, Frank Lampard, what a bold stroke to completely change the game. And I was like, Frank Lampard, it was a bold stroke starting the kids. Bringing the kids off for some of your most experienced international players is not necessarily a bold stroke, But,
I understand. But there has been a few times, though, where Frank has made these substitutions and they have worked. Like the Palace game, he brought on Tammy and Ruben Loftus-Cheek and they scored, and he brought on Jorginho to kind of control it. And so I do understand what you mean, but I do also think he has been pretty good on that front. It's been a weird season, but I think from a Chelsea fan point, like it's been an enjoyable season. It's been so good, like especially to see your players like Mason Mount, who kind of has gone through it and gone through the kind of the long way round by going through a few loans and then coming through to the squad and fitting right in. Like watching him yesterday, I mean the goal may have been a bit more fluky due to David De Gea, but it was what he deserved. The guy puts so much passion. He has so much passion for the club, and he runs like there's no tomorrow. And that's another thing which I think we've seen more than ever, like the way how the team are all working for each other. The pressing, even from the first game. I remember the game against United. We may have lost 4-0, but you saw the starts there. You saw the beginnings of what we kind of see throughout the season of this high press and making sure we're always running after always pressing the opposition when they've got the ball. And we mentioned his name earlier, Kovacic. I mean, if it wasn't for the lockdown and the long break in between, I think people would probably say he's our best player of the season. People may now say that was, say, Pulisic or Giroud, but Kovacic is always at least a 7 out of 10 performance. I never feel like he's ever putting less than that. And if he could maybe improve his attacking side of the game, maybe scoring a few more goals, getting a few more assists, I'd say he'd be one of the best midfielders in the Premier League.
I'd completely agree with that. I think he's been a fantastic signing for you. I guess that in a way it's been difficult for him in that N'Golo Kante has had a very stop-start season.
Yeah, that's probably the downside to it, because arguably our only world-class player, like elite player, is N'Golo Kante, and it's weird because I guess these injuries were to be expected, because since we've bought him, since he was at Leicester, he hasn't really had a season like this where he's been injured. He's always been the man that has always been there. He's never picked up a few injuries through the season and missed a lot of games. Whereas this season has been the first that I can only think of where he has missed a lot due to injuries. And you've seen it. You've seen it defensively. I mean, when Kante's not in the squad, we just seem a little bit more suspect at the back because he's not there pressing them or putting in the tackles like he is. And especially since we've come out of lockdown as well, Frank seemed to put him back into his favoured position. And we've seen like against City how much that means to us. It's so good. But at the same time, if Kante wasn't injured, you might not have seen Billy Gilmour come through. I mean, they are different players, but he's played in that position, and I mean, unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the season by the looks of it, and hopefully he comes back from that injury okay. But yeah, it's kind of, although there's a negative, I guess there's a silver lining.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the thing, like N'Golo Kante, he is getting to that age now where if you're a central midfielder whose game is very much about anticipation and energy, it does start to get difficult for you. Like, I think when Conte's played this season, he's still an amazing player, but he looks less like the guy of 3 years ago who was just impassable, and now he looks like what he is, which is a very, very good, even world-class defensive midfielder, but no longer like the best defensive midfielder of the last 10 years, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's just due to, like, he's played so much football.
Yeah.
He's played so much football over these years. You think, like, he's had a World Cup in there. He's always been in European competitions, the domestic cups. We've made it very far to the finals or to the semi-finals in most cases. And in each one of these games, he's always played. And so last season when we got to that Europa League final and he'd picked up that injury just before and he still played in the final against Arsenal, it was like we are running this man dry. And so it's unsurprising to see this year him not necessarily be there all the time. And even when he has been available, you could still argue we've maybe rushed him back too early. I think back to the what's it called? The Super Cup against Liverpool. And he'd just come back from injury, and we played him, and he played 120 minutes, and he couldn't play again for another couple of months. So arguably, that's kind of been the downside of rushing him back too soon. And maybe this rest is probably good for him, and hopefully, I mean, he's going to have like another month off now with the end of the season. So hopefully that'll do some good, and next season we can see him, because I think this is it for Kante now. He will never play as many games as he has previously. It just won't happen. As we've mentioned, he's at that age and he's just picking up too many injuries now. But if we use him right, then he'll still hopefully hit the 30 plus games a season, maybe 40.
And it looks like there's going to be plenty of help coming in. I mean, transfer-wise, obviously Timo Werner's wrapped up. Hakim Ziyech is wrapped up. It looks like Kai Havertz, he may even be announced possibly by the time this goes out.
Yeah.
What does that leave to do? Because, I mean, there's no point us talking about those players. I think we can all agree they're fantastic signings. And actually, there's a lot of money going out of Chelsea, but potentially there's some money coming in. I mean, they've got Pedro out of contract this summer, Willian out of contract. There are rumours that Jorginho, Alonso, Emerson could all attract buyers. Michy Batshuayi could be sold. Bakayoko could be sold. Ethan Ampadu could be sold. So there are a lot of assets on Chelsea's books who could be moved on in order to free up wage space and bring in cash. If Chelsea can do that, what is there left to do?
Well, I think it's quite obvious in terms. I mean, we at Football Daily have spoken about it probably all season. The left back side has been an issue. I think in general for Lampard, the defence has been a bit of an issue because he's never picked the same four all the time. Like, he doesn't have a consistent back four, which I'm sure as the keeper, which we'll move on to in a second, can't be good. If you don't know who's playing centre back or who's playing left back, is it Aspie this time? Is it Emerson or Alonso? It's definitely not good. And as a back four, you need to play together all the time just to know whether Zuma's playing. He normally drops back, meaning I can go too, things like that, which you can't really account for when you're coming in and out all the time. But yeah, left back is the main issue. Mainly, I think we will keep Alonso. Because in a wing-back position, there's not many better than him, even with his age. I mean, he's never necessarily been the fastest player, but as a wing-back, he is fantastic. We saw it yesterday against United. He was quality in that position, caused Wan-Bissaka a lot of problems, along with Mason Mount on that side too. So I think we'll keep him, but the thing with Chelsea is we still also don't know our best formation. So keeping him for when we play three at the back is fantastic. But what we need is a left back for when we play four at the back. And And the issue is that I'm not too sure who that would be, because I've seen links to Ben Chilwell, and he is a fantastic player. But for £80 million, do we want to spend that on him? I'm not too sure. The other surprise for me that I saw was Hakimi moving to Inter Milan for just €40 million. Now, Hakimi isn't necessarily the greatest defensive left back, but with the way Chelsea are playing football, we need our left back to attack, and there's not many better than him at the moment who's shown it for Borussia Dortmund over the past couple of seasons how fantastic he can be. I mean, he's played on the right this season, but he is versatile and can play on the left. So I think left back is the main one. I'm not too sure who that guy is. In all fairness, like we've also got an academy prospect called Ian Maatsen, who he's only played one game this season. He looks pretty good. I mean, he's 18, so I don't really know too much. Sure. He's from the Netherlands. He's a solid guy. I've interviewed him. But yeah, so left back, I'm not too sure because the other thing right now is people know how vital a fullback is nowadays. I mean, you look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andrew Robertson, and how important they are. And so whatever one we go for, every club also knows that we need a left back. So there goes an extra £10 million on it just for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Chelsea team behind the scenes will have a tough task trying to find the right person. I'm not too like. Do you have any specific people you think would fit quite good? I mean, they've also seen links to Bayern Munich's Alaba, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, neither do I, to be honest with you. I think it's quite difficult, this position. I think that I'd be tempted to have kind of like 2 or 3 targets. I'm not sure that I'd go and get like a Tagliafico or someone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's really worth the money.
Even Alex Telles I've seen links to as well.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a part of me that kind of thinks if you're not going to get like an ideal player, then maybe instead continue with like a 3 at the back next season and tough it out with what you have, because the good thing about the squad they're building at the moment is it's really young. And so it's not one of those things where you think you have to go out and buy like a 28-year-old, left back who's just going to be great now to make it work. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't compete for the title in the next couple of years, because so long as you keep that squad together, everyone's going to be better in 3 years' time. I don't know. I mean, Chilwell's good, but I think he's like substantially overpriced. On the other hand, I think fullbacks are quite a thin area right now. But maybe if Lucas Hernandez is available out of Bayern Munich, but I don't know how much you'd have to spend. Like, I think it's really, really difficult. Like, to be honest with you, I'd really, really struggle to find a solid left back target for Chelsea right now, because I don't think that there's a huge amount knocking around.
I have a decent amount of hope for Ian Maatsen. I can't say I've watched a lot of his games, so but when I watched him against Grimsby Town, he was pretty good.
Sure.
But yeah, the pull there's not too bad. But then at the same time, I hope we know our fullback talent. I mean, look at Reece James. He's been fantastic there. And the other bit as well is Azpilicueta is also a fine left back.
Yes.
He's been an absolute servant for the club, and he's definitely a legend that will go down, and his versatility has helped us out massively. And so if we went into next season with Aspie having to play left back, I honestly wouldn't mind. I personally would not like to sell Ampadu. I would like to keep Ampadu. I think he might need another season on loan, just because I think he's played like 5 games for RB Leipzig this season, even though one of them was against Spurs and he played fantastically well.
Yeah.
Just for his own personal development, he needs to have a season of playing football. He played that game against Spurs and got an injury just due to the lack of amount of minutes he's played this season. So I personally would like to keep him because I do think he is a talent. I think we need a centre back. Now, that's not me saying that I don't think Rudiger, I don't think Zuma, I don't think Christensen is good enough. And I mentioned earlier the issue with not playing a consistent back 4, but what we need is and it's very easier said than done, but what we need is the Van Dijk effect. We need a player
who doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. But we need a player who's a bit more experienced, a bit more, who is going to be in that back 4 week in, week out. And it's a bit more physical too, because as much as Rudiger is a fantastic defender, and Kurt Zouma is a fantastic defender, and so is Christensen. They all have different they all have different parts of their game. Like if we're doing a passing game, then Christensen's your man. If it's more of a physical game, then Zuma is your man. And then Rudiger is kind of a mix between the both. But as much as I love Rudiger, there is every now and again he'll have a mistake, and maybe I put that down to just him. Defenders make mistakes, but maybe I just put that down to kind of because he's also still quite young. I think he's 26 or so, 27, and so what we need is you do need the Koulibaly. You need that guy who week in week out is a fantastic defender, but you don't want to go spend 80 million euros on a 29-year-old centre back, which is what Napoli want. So there's not really anyone else that I look there and go, oh, maybe we should have gone for Mats Hummels last year from Bayern Munich, or I mean, I tell you the guy who we need, Rafael Varane, but we're not going to get Rafael Varane.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
So yeah, I wouldn't mind a centre back of that calibre, but then I don't want to overspend. So if next year we had to go in with the same back line, I wouldn't mind. But then now I guess we got onto the goalkeeper situation, which is a rough one.
Well, I think we can agree. I'm not going to make you say anything you might regret there, but I think we can agree that there's definitely room for improvement in the goalkeeping department, and it certainly sounds like Chelsea are scouting around to see what's available there. I mean, with that in mind, maybe just before I leave you, with that in mind, if Chelsea were to get a new goalkeeper in and a good left back in, but no centre backs this summer, like they were to get Havertz done as well, what would be your prediction for next season? What would be your hope?
Probably third, but better than we are. more like a solid third. The thing is, right, Liverpool and City are just miles ahead. And I think Lampard knows that as well. I mean, he's literally said in press conferences this season that the ideal scenario is to be Liverpool in a few years' time. And I do think that's happening. Like, I do think the squad that we're building is something for the future, is something for the next couple of seasons. I mean, we may even give them a run for their money. We may even push them and maybe not go all the way and end up 10 points off or something like that. But that's the hope. Is next year people go it's Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City challenging for the title, not just Liverpool and Man City. And I think that is possible with our front line, definitely, 100%. Like with Timo Werner coming in and, the players, Hakim Ziyech and even possibly Kai Havertz, and then with the players that we've already got, it's definitely very, very, very promising on the attacking end. And then you hope as well, another year onwards, if we do bring in the left back, if we do bring in a keeper. And I also still don't mind Kepa either. I think as a keeper, it is hard to not have the same back four in front of you. I do think that is a major factor, just because you just don't know if it's changing all the time, you just don't know what they're going to do. So you don't know whether to prepare yourself to try and come out for the cross, etc. But look, whether that happens or not is fine. But yeah, I think if we can fix up a little bit more defensively and learn to kill off games and make sure we're beating teams like your West Hams, like your Bournemouths, then yeah, I definitely think because we're already doing the hard stuff right already. We're beating the Man Cities, we're beating the top sides. But if we do the easier stuff, I say easier, but if we do that part of the game, then yeah, I think we'll be third, but challenging, but being up there, and people definitely saying Chelsea the season after have a very good chance of trying to go for the title.
I'm a little bit more bullish than you. I think that actually, I don't think the gap is as big as you think it is. I don't think it's as big as it looks in the table. I think that the first 10 games of the season, Chelsea were actually playing the big boys pretty much level. And while there was a drop off after that, I think that improving some of the talent, improving some of the depth next season, and also a bunch of these guys just getting a year's kind of seasoning at the top level, could make a big difference. Annoyingly, I think Chelsea are going to be very, very good for the next few years. But thank you very much for joining me, Zac. Is there anything you'd like to point to before we say goodbye?
I mean, if you guys want to check out the new Leeds, everything you need to know on Football Daily, please do, and head over to Snapchat to watch our daily stories over there. I would also like to say, just because I know you're about to move on to Arsenal, I think Arsenal are going to be they're going to be much better next season as well. That game against Man City, the first goal especially was something I'm pretty sure every Arsenal fan was very pleased about.
Yeah. You know what? I'll keep it under wraps for now. But thanks very much, Zach. So, done with Chelsea now. We get to move on to the actually interesting part of the podcast. And I'm joined by a real Arsenal fan, seeing as I'm constantly accused of not being a real Arsenal fan, George Wright. George, thanks for coming on today.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
It's not really a pleasure to talk about Arsenal this season, but
well, it is the last week. Or
well,
if we ignore last Sunday, then
exactly,
it's been a good week.
Exactly. Like, I mean, in a way, though, that's the thing that annoys me the most about the last. But anyway, we'll come on to that. Like, Arsenal, going into the last couple of games of the season, Arsenal can finish as high as 7th, I think. Currently down in 10th. But we have reached the FA Cup final. We've beaten the 2 best teams in the country in the space of a week, though in a way that was perhaps a little bit of a compromise. You know, like, don't get me wrong, I'm delighted about the results, but Arteta made it very clear that this is not how he wants to compete with the top sides going forward. At least the Liverpool game. Maybe less so the Man City one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, what would happen if so say if Pep joined Arsenal at this time, there is no way he'd be replicating his style of play right now with this shambles of a squad.
Yes.
There's only one way it can be done, which is covering up the defence, and I think we've had to do it, and we've done it quite well. I mean, you're not going to see much change from Arsenal until at least 1 or 2 windows now under Arteta, really, because there's so much that needs to be done.
Yeah,
and you can't really complain either way.
Yeah, if you look at like the kind of performance over the course of the season, if you look at like the underlying stats, then expected points, expected goals against, we're 10th by everything.
Yeah,
but I think sorry,
it's not really surprising, really, given the first half of the season.
Well, I mean, the first half of the season was even worse than that, right? I mean, it was genuinely unwatchable. Everybody we played against, whoever we played against, they would get like 20 shots against us. It just didn't matter whether we were at home, who it was.
I think Wolves had like 28 at one point, or something ridiculous.
Oh yeah, do you remember Watford? Do you remember the Watford game?
Yeah, what the 2-2, or
where they had 33 shots.
We got absolutely battered by them. Yeah, that was great. Prime Emery ball that.
And this is the thing about Arteta. I mean, like, Arteta's trying to change so many things at once. He's trying to cover for a defence which, personnel-wise, at centre-back is pretty ropey. He's trying to get the team pressing. He's trying to get them all working back, which is something they're not doing. He's also trying to integrate players like N'Golo Kante, who has clearly had quite a difficult campaign. And I mean, when you look at the stats under Arteta, they're not that much better than under Emery. But firstly, I think you've got to take into account there the number of red cards. There have been 4 red cards in that time. And you think that 2-2 at Chelsea, where we just got pounded because we were down 10 men. I mean, the Leicester game, I think we would have won comfortably if Nketiah hadn't been sent off. If Trent Alexander-Arnold had gone off in the Liverpool game, who knows?
I mean, I feel like we have been quite unlucky. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the Nketiah card was deserved red. But I think if that doesn't happen, then you saw him on a touchline before he came on. He kept saying to Eddie, well, you need to get behind the back line. And then that would be so crucial for us in that last 20 minutes where we were under the cosh and we needed an outlet because all our players were basically.
Yeah. And even in the Spurs game, you know, like not having Martinelli or Nketiah to come on and stretch the defence in the last half hour made life extremely difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs game, I think I was really disappointed that I think they were definitely there for the taking. And this isn't like sort of any bias or anything, but I think if Kolasinac doesn't play that ball, that lovely through ball to Heung-min Son, then I think it would have been a different game because we were kind of in the ascendancy at that point. We created a couple of chances just before, and the only way I could see before that happening was us getting another goal, and I think that would have killed the game because I think Mourinho wouldn't be able to cope with being 2-0 down, and I think they would have been more open. But after that, we were shambles, and luckily he hasn't played Kolasinac at left centre half since, and it's been KT with either Saka or Maitland-Niles. So I think the thing with this season is that expectations had to be quite low when Arteta was brought in. Obviously, he's never managed before, which is quite a big deal for a manager in the Premier League. The personnel I think he's dealt with quite well. You've got the propaganda coming out about how he's amazing behind the scenes, blah blah blah, which I totally believe. I can imagine that he's a great manager, but you have to look at the likes of, so say like Guendouzi, that he's been acting up. All he wants is players who are 100% committed, and I think Maitland-Niles was obviously out of the team for a while because obviously his attitude wasn't right or he wanted to go. And it just shows that if you're willing to give 100% to Arteta and you buy in, you're going to get a chance. And I thought he was one of our better players on the weekend against Man City.
Yeah, and I thought it was really heartening as well. Like this is the reason that I'm not totally. We'll talk about squad building in a little bit, but the reason I wasn't totally against another year for David Luiz was because that conversation that you saw David Luiz having with Maitland-Niles at the end was something that we've been hearing about Luiz behind the scenes all season, right? That he's been incredibly good with the young players.
I think the thing with the David Luiz situation, it makes not just that sense to have like an experienced head behind the scenes, but also the fact that he's not a sellable asset at all in any regard. Whereas you look at someone like Socrates, for example, even though he is overpaid and he is old, you still might get a suitor for him at some point. Like there's been links with Stuttgart, obviously Mavropanos has gone there on loan. But I think we could shift him on. Whereas David Luiz, he's got no resale value. He's taken a significant pay cut. Why would we try and buy a replacement for him? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If he's already there and he's already willing to take a pay cut, why would we go out on the market and pay even like a low fee, like 5 million plus an agent's fee, plus signing on bonus, plus their wages? It would make no sense. So obviously the contract extension happened at a really bad time for David Luiz in the fact that he was terrible against Man City. But I think it's quite justifiable when you put a level head on and you're not looking back at a game emotionally. It's quite justifiable that you got to give him a new deal.
And especially, I think, if we want to have the option of playing in a back three next season, obviously when you're in a back three, you've got one fewer attacker, which means that you need like better distribution out of the back line. And I think
there's no one better than
in the middle of a
David
back
Luiz.
three, he's good. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
he truly is really good at that. And I mean, I could imagine a scenario in which like a back three of like Saliba, Luiz, Pablo Mari was actually pretty good, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's the thing with a back three as well. I don't think Arteta wants to play a back three, to be honest.
No.
But next season, if he wants to really incorporate Saliba in quite easily, then it's a pretty good bet, having Saliba on the right, David Luiz in the middle, and Mari on the left. Because then you've got sort of an insurance policy really with him, because he's going to be such a young age being thrown into the deep end. But obviously, we think he's ready to do it, and I think he will start. Saliba will be now will start within 5 or 10 games, I reckon.
I think so as well. I mean, it's been the way that players have kind of gone in and out of the side, and the way that they've been perceived as the fans is a real indication of how topsy-turvy this season's been, because Granit Xhaka was absolutely despised by the fans at one point. Now the fans seem to think he's God's gift. I don't entirely agree on that. Lacazette went into the season as like probably one of the most liked players in the squad.
Yeah, he won Player of the Year last year.
He did, and while he's actually been in very good form, he's got 3 goals and an assist in his last 4 games. But he and it obviously seems like Arteta likes him. But he, on the other hand, has seen his reputation with the supporters at least seemingly completely disappear.
I think it's when one of the most well-liked players like Aubameyang and Lacazette. Aubameyang will never get it because he's always constantly performed. He's got the second most Premier League goals or in all competitions from a Premier League player since he joined. Whereas Lacazette, I think the feeling is that obviously as fans over the years get more informed about the club's financial situation and know how we need to operate in a transfer market, it kind of puts more scrutiny on those who are assets you can sell. And given the fact that we signed a world-class striker 6 months after bringing him in, and the fact that there's been points a season where he's looked dreadful, out of form, very low on confidence, really poor away from home, and you think, why is Aubameyang starting out wide when we can play him in the middle and line up with like Saka, Aubameyang and Pepe, for example? But I mean, I do quite like Lacazette as a person. as a player, he's very useful. We've seen in the last few games, like him dropping deep has been very helpful to us. I think it works better for him in a way. I think his best assets are when he's on the ball and able to drop deep and able to start the attack, for example. But when you're in this financial situation, we need such a big overhaul in the summer. You look at him and think, right, there's only about 5 players in this squad who we'd want to sell. We can sell. We can afford to sell, and also bring a fee. And I think, unfortunately for him, he falls into that bracket. So the fans naturally are going to start criticising whenever he has a bad run. Or, yeah, I just feel like he's a prime target, really. And for Xhaka, I think his turnaround has been nothing short of remarkable, really. It's clear that without him in midfield, we look so poor. And I think, although that looks good for Xhaka, it's a symbolism of how bad we are, really. Like a player like Granit Xhaka is so important to Arsenal Football Club. It's quite absurd. But you can't deny that since Arteta's come in, he's been great for us. Like, considering he's playing, most teams play a 4-3-3, and it's just been him and Ceballos, or him and Guendouzi, or him and Torreira. I think he's really held his own, and you saw that especially on the weekend. I thought him and David Luiz in particular were fantastic.
Yeah, though I do think that if I had to like just start one of our current midfielders like every game, I would definitely pick Ceballos. Like, I think the thing about Ceballos is he has so much more athleticism, and he's like a mosquito. He's just like around opposition players all the time, and it looks like, you know, he's obviously 23 too. But it looks like he's got that. He's starting to find his rhythm with his passing. Like, some of his passes into the right wing back, particularly against Wolves, were so dangerous.
I know it sounds really simple, but it's like when you watch Xhaka on the left and Ceballos on the right, the way they drive the ball down the wing, it's just it increases the pace and the tempo so much that it's almost given a chance to cross like every 2 minutes whenever they get the ball. It's such an easy outlet as well, especially when you've got KT running down the left. Like, I think Ceballos would, especially with the rumours that we might be extending his loan with a mandatory option to buy, a mandatory obligation to buy of about 20 million quid. I think that would be quite smart business, to be honest, in the current climate, because you've got to imagine that the financial situation for football will be much improved in 12 months. So if we can do that, then I don't see why not, because even if he ends up, say, a year or two down the line as a third choice centre mid, and if we're playing a 2, then we're still going to get more money from him than 20 million. It's just...
Yeah. I guess I see his ceiling as being quite high. Like, I mean, the thing is, I can imagine a future in which Arsenal are very good and Ceballos is a starter. Whereas I agree with you on Xhaka in that, like, Xhaka has been good recently, but I think I can't imagine Arsenal ever being a great side with Granit Xhaka as like a nailed-on starter.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's. I mean, unless there's some kind of radical transformation, or the manager gets something like what happened to Jordan Henderson, for example, unless that level of change happens, it's very hard to envisage Arsenal challenging for the title with Granit Xhaka as like the midfield linchpin. To be honest, not a slight on Granit Xhaka at all, but it's just his way it is, really. Unless there's a kind of Jordan Henderson transformation.
Yeah, I mean, leaving aside centre-back, let's leave aside centre-back because Saliba's coming in, and I think we all assume that Arsenal are looking around for centre-back options. They're going to have to rejig the back line because they've got tons of centre-backs at the moment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how many centre-backs we have at the club, and none of them are good.
Leaving those guys aside, what do you think the biggest hole is in the squad? Because the thing is, for me, I think it's attacking midfield. I think attacking midfield is a bigger issue than centre mid.
The thing is with centre mids is that we've now shown that we can somewhat cope with the centre mids we have now. Whereas attacking midfield, there are games where we look absolutely clueless. Like, you know, I love Mesut Ozil, but he's just finished. There's no way back for him. His time at the top flight is over. There's no way I can ever see him performing at the standards he's set for himself. Obviously, he's got a year left, but I think we're just trying to get rid of him in any way possible now, even if it's a loan, whatever. Which makes me think Ceballos can't play as a 10. He's just not that type of player.
Yeah.
And if we we want to play this 4-3-3, which I imagine Arteta wants us to do, it needs to be kind of like a 8/10. And I think, well, currently as a backup, I'm not like against having Smith Rowe come back and have that as like a backup cup option in that position. I think he deserves a shot anyway if he can stay injury free. And obviously you've got Joe Willock, we've just been playing up front for some reason recently, just to hunt down centre halves. But I think attacking midfield is a huge problem for us if we want to progress as a football club. And although I think, quite surprisingly, I don't really like Coutinho. I haven't really liked him for years, but he would be a quick fix in that solution for a year. But I don't think we need a quick fix at all. I think it needs to be a long-term solution at this number 10/8 spot.
Well, this is the thing that I think is often underrated about a team like Liverpool, right? Like when you watch Liverpool play, sometimes I see them, you see them exchange like some amazing, like intricate passes and cut through you. And then I look at those players and I think, the three players involved in that passing move just now were like Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Origi or something.
Yeah.
And I think, those aren't great players. Like that. What that is players who know each other and know the system inside out, and that is the advantage, right? Like if we brought in Coutinho would probably be our best player, like pretty much immediately. But I completely agree. Like it's not gonna solve things in the long run. Like when you could get a guy who is probably like, he's not that level, but you could get a guy probably who's pretty good and is maybe 22, 23, and then who's going to develop with. Because when we played under Wenger, what you always had for the midfielders were options ahead of them on the edge of the box. You always had guys like Alexis, Ozil, even Iwobi, who wanted to drift between the lines and could be found and got on the ball a lot. Whereas now, I think this is why I think potentially a lot of fans have kind of wanted to see the Saka, Aubameyang, Pepe front line. But I think this is the reason we haven't, which is that Saka and Aubameyang are both at the moment kind of off the ball players. They want to make runs and be found. Yeah. And Pepe is just not technically reliable enough or creative enough to carry that burden of the front line on his own at the moment. He's not Alexis Sanchez, basically.
Yeah. It's quite hard to identify someone attainable who could fit in that really at the minute, and someone who we need someone who's quite young and very quick to adapt, which is quite a hard find in this market, especially with the lack of finance we have really. I mean, if Villa get relegated, I'll definitely take a punt on Grealish. I know he's a bit of a troublesome boy at times, but I think he might fit, and even if he doesn't fit and he's not performing that well, I think you've still got a good resale value on him down the line. Yeah. I mean, Ben Rama would be a winger. He wouldn't fit really. Ollie Watkins is playing almost as a striker / like basically second striker this season. I mean, I can't even think of a target that I would want in this position at the minute, really, because the standard is so high to be there. You've got to be a really outstanding player to look in this position now, because everyone's like modelling on Kevin De Bruyne, and his level is unattainable for every other midfielder on the planet because he's by far and away the best one. So I have no idea who we can get in this slot, but you just got to hope that Raul Sanelli pulls the magic out of his phone book, really, to be honest, or just a quick stop until we find someone of that caliber, because it's going to be such a hard find.
Okay, so when you were recruiting this player, you would, if you're looking for somebody who's principally more of a midfielder than a winger, I suppose we've been linked with Aouar. He'd be quite interesting there if we could get him, though I'm not sure we could. He's not had a good season.
I think that's just a pipe dream made up from the keeper about a Guendouzi swap, to be honest.
Yeah, well, Guendouzi's a little bit of a sad one. Like, I mean, if Guendouzi goes, I would want us to bring in a young midfielder, because I think this is the thing. This is the issue with the Thomas Partey thing, right? Which is Thomas Partey's a really good player, but you bring in a guy who's 27 and a bunch of important members of the team are like kind of 18, 19, then by the time those guys are 30, 31, Partey's on his way out. Yeah.
I mean, I would really like Partey to come to Arsenal, if I'm being, regardless of his age or the fee. I think it would be a real step forward for us, not just because of his quality on the pitch, but at least it sends the message like this guy is a bona fide starter in what could potentially be a Champions League finalists team, and he's willing to come to Arsenal. He's willing to work under Arteta. He's talked to Arteta. He thinks like, this is the man I want to develop my career and win trophies with. So I think it'd be a very statement signing if we got him. Do I think it's necessarily needed, and there probably be an option which is a bit cheap and we can focus on somewhere else? Yeah, but I mean, for all the things that we lack in midfield, in central midfield, I think he'd be a big problem solver in that regard. And I think when you see the impact like someone like Fabinho's has at Liverpool, I think he wouldn't be the same, but I think he could have a big influence on how we progress the ball forward and getting out of tight spaces. And obviously, Saturday showed the presence we have really at the minute, and he'd only improve that. But number 10, I'm absolutely clueless as to who we could even target. But I think it is very vital, probably one of the most vital positions we need reinforcement in.
Yeah, I completely agree. So what would your dream summer look like then? Like, obviously assuming that you don't necessarily know who we get at attacking midfield, but attacking midfielder?
Yeah, Partey, definitely. I think I would try and sell Guendouzi, I reckon.
Okay.
Or at least try and make him a deal for someone else. I'm not entirely sure who. I would probably sell Lacazette as well. Because the thing is, we need to kind of safeguard. We need to sell the assets that are sellable now, because no one's going to pay over 30 million for a 30-year-old Lacazette next summer.
Well, what about Aubameyang then? Why not sell Aubameyang?
I think he'll stay. I think he'll sign a new deal.
Are we not worried about giving a 3-year deal to a 31-year-old at 250k?
I know we've already been burnt with this before. Most recently, 2 years ago. But I can't see Aubameyang having a decline that Ozil's had, because even though he's one of the fastest players in the league, I've never seen him really rely on his pace that much. Like, I can't ever see him losing this goal-scoring instinct that he has. And I think if you lose Aubameyang, you're literally losing 30 goals a season. And I don't know who we can buy, who's going to step up, who can replace that, really. I would do everything, even though it's probably the last time we should offer a big contract to over 30. I think it should be him, and I think we need him to stay. Otherwise, I think next season is going to be really hard.
What if we sold him and brought in like an elite left winger who is going to get a bunch of goals? Like, obviously he's not really fit right now. He's just coming back to fitness. But, like say like a full form Memphis Depay and then an attacking midfielder. With
Lacazette in the middle.
With your options in the middle would be Lacazette, Nketiah and Martinelli, right? And I think we all hope that Nicola Pepe will be better next season than he's been this year.
Yeah, I mean, Pepe will never be worth what we paid for him. That's just he will never be worth 72 million. But I'm not going to hold that against him. It's not his fault that we paid 72 million pounds for him. But I think he's a good player, and his goal and assist return, he's been great this season for someone who's been inconsistent and poor for large periods throughout it. But I would still rather have Aubameyang over Memphis or anyone else. To be honest, I would not mind him. Like, we give him a 2 or 3 year deal, and we just let him go after that. I'm perfectly fine with that, because I know Jamie Vardy's a bit of a freak, but I can't imagine, if he's not dropping off, I can't imagine Aubameyang, who's been one of 4 players who scored over 20 league goals each season in the last 5 years, dropping off, to be honest. His injury record's great. I just don't. He would be my number one. If signing him to like a 2 or 3 year deal meant we're not getting 10 or we're not even getting Partey, I would probably consider it, to be honest. I think he's that important to this club, and he should. I don't think he should be captain necessarily, even though he's done well. But he's definitely a talisman. I think we've struggled so much without him, and he's definitely got us out of a lot of sticky situations this year.
I'd mind a 2 year deal a lot less than a 3 year deal, but I also think that, like, when I look at teams like Liverpool, the way they built their side, I think to some extent was by being willing to sell outstanding individuals to make a more well-rounded team. And I think that if somebody came I suppose there would be like a change, a point at which it would change, right? Which is that if someone offered a significant amount for Aubameyang this summer, that you then could go and do quite a lot with it.
Yeah. If it's,
then you think, okay.
The problem is that no one can. Is the issue? Is that do I think it's worth selling Aubameyang for 20 or 30 million? No, I'd rather keep him and let him leave on a free. And that's the. So say like the Coutinho sale, for example. If we had Aubameyang at the same age as that Liverpool Coutinho, so just in their peak, so when Coutinho, when he left, was arguably the best player in the league, we had that. Like he was about 26, 27 when he left or whatever, then I would be overselling him for over 100 million. But we're not going to get anywhere near that fee, which is the big issue. When the fee that we get for him isn't going to be strong enough to invest in other areas, if that makes sense for me. Mm-hmm. Like it wouldn't make up for the fact for that, really.
Yeah, I think we might see a lot of swaps or attempts at swaps this summer. That might be the way that it moves forward.
Finally living in a FIFA fantasy this summer.
So, with all this in mind, what are your predictions for next season? What do you think we'll get this summer? What do you think will happen in the FA Cup final? And where do you think we'll finish next year?
Well, we said on this How to Fix Arsenal podcast like a year ago that we didn't want Emery in charge. We wanted Arteta in charge. Well, sure. I can remember saying that. And I remember the targets that I wanted last summer, like Tierney, Pepe, Saliba, we got. I just think, just because we've had a poor season, I don't think we had a poor summer last year, because I don't think we could have afforded to have done much more than we did last summer, to be honest, because we were kind of on a roll. And even though Raul Sanelli gets critics for being a bit of an agent's person over a statistics person, I mean, he's done all right. Only if we're offering mental deals for Andre Gomez or who was that centre mid that joined Valencia from Benfica, and he was absolutely rubbish and went back to Argentina. Enzo Perez for 30 million. Yeah. Then I'll start to worry. But for now, it's been all right. I mean, if we bring in attacking midfielder, keep Aubameyang, sign someone like Thomas Partey, I think that's good enough stead for next season, really. I don't think we can ask for much more than that, given... Am I worried about Bellerin? Yes, I'm very worried about Bellerin. Cedric's fine as backup. I've got no issue with that. Hopefully keep Maitland-Niles. He's very useful. And with a full pre-season under his belt and hopefully a bit more, just starting off quite strongly, I think it could be a good season next season. No, I don't think it would be anywhere near challenging a title. But if we can get close to the top four, then great. That's all you can ask for, really. As long as we're making progress on the pitch, and I see it, with my own eyes, like you could tell with Emery's 22-game unbeaten run that we were absolutely terrible at points, and there was only about 3 games which we deserved to win by the margin we did. But with what he said, there's already enough been shown by Arteta that I think I'm more than confident he's a man who has got any chance of bringing some glory to Arsenal, and I think it could be on the 1st of August. I wanted to play Chelsea over Man United. Before the game as well, I said I wanted Chelsea over Man United, just because the thing with Man United is they've got at least like 3 or 4 players who can create something out of nothing, whereas Chelsea, I think you've got Pulisic and a run from Kovacic, and that's it, really. You've got crosses from Willian non-stop, and Giroud, obviously, he's probably going to score against us, but as long as we put a reduce on him within 5 minutes, it'll be fine.
So confident then?
I'm not confident because we are Arsenal and we're relying on ticking time bombs all the time, really, in defence. Yeah. So you never know what's going to happen, but we should. It'd be a much more competitive showing than we did in Baku 12 months ago. Put it that way.
I think that's true.
And I think the next 2 games for us are really dead rubber. I don't think we've got any chance of qualifying for the Europa League through the league anymore. I think that's done and dusted, really. So we've just got all our eggs in the FA Cup basket, which is exactly the same as we did last season. But for the Champions League. But hopefully, with an actual manager instead of a clown in charge and dugout, we should be better off. I mean, I don't know what you think. Well, I don't know what you said to Zach. I'm guessing he was quite confident as well.
We didn't really talk about the FA Cup final. We just talked about next season for them, and annoyingly, it looks like they're going to have an unbelievable transfer window. So,
well, I mean, and the thing is with Chelsea's transfer window is, I don't know why they've not even been linked with a centre half or goalkeeper. And I can't see them reaching Liverpool, Man City's level with that back four and that goalkeeper. I just can't see it. But obviously, going forward, it'll be unbelievable for them next season. It'd be foolish to rule them out of an easy top four spot. I mean, if they don't finish in the top four, then it's a disaster for Frank Lampard next season. Whereas I don't think Arteta has that kind of pressure on him at all.
No. And on the plus side, Spurs are really, really bad. Like, Harry Kane looks it again, but Spurs are absolutely dreadful. So that's nice.
I saw on Sky Sports News on the bottom, it said Mourinho said that Harry Kane wouldn't be special anywhere else. So I'm guessing that's great man management for him, as per usual. So I'm looking forward to seeing Spurs next season. To be honest, I'm not I'm not gloating or anything, because I think we're probably just a. But I mean, I'm so glad we did not hire Carlo Ancelotti or Jose Mourinho. I'll say that much. God. That would have been the worst timeline possible.
Yeah, I think I'd have given up on football at that point. There'd have been a lot of resignations handed in the Football Daily that day. But thanks very much for joining me, George.
Right,
and I think actually, like, despite all our criticisms, I think that we're both quite upbeat about Arsenal next season under Arteta.
I mean, we even under Arteta, we've had some dreadful games, but the way that he speaks to the fans, the way that he rallies the troops, the way that the players speak about him, it's like we've got a gem on our hands, really, and it'll be foolish to like even question his matters at the minute. I mean, obviously in-game substitutions weren't a strong point for him at the start of his career, but he's literally 6 months into a job. He had a month in the most hectic schedule of the year before coronavirus, and now he's had that on his plate. He had coronavirus, and now he's had to come back and try and make Arsenal good, which is no easy task, as we've seen over the last 2-3 years. But I think you have to temper expectations, but there's no reason not to be optimistic about having Arteta in charge really at the minute. I think he's done superb. He said everything that needs to be said, even having a dig at Kroenke and the board for not having much money in their pocket. So at the minute, unless things go rapidly downhill, which I wouldn't be surprised, it's the only way is up, really, to be honest, especially after having that idiot in charge last time.
Well, yeah, he's beaten Klopp, Guardiola, and coronavirus all in one season. So it's a very impressive half campaign for Mikel Arteta. Thanks very much for joining me, George, and thank you to you guys for listening or watching. Obviously, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, Football Daily Podcast, if you're not subscribed already, and also please subscribe to us on whichever podcast app you use. It really helps us out. Thanks very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.